But I know, we all know, there is more work to do.
Oh, here we go.
That is why I am announcing Canada will be providing 25 more LAV-3 infantry fighting vehicles to Ukraine. We will be delivering 2 armoured combat support vehicles, which Ukrainian forces will be trained on shortly in Germany. Landing systems for F-16s were delivered just 2 months ago, and 4 F-16 flight simulators will be provided in the coming months. And that's on top of the millions of additional rounds of ammunition, components for drone cameras, and first aid kits. We're also dispersing the first installment of the $5 billion in assistance to Ukraine funded through revenues from frozen Russian assets, along with providing a grant to help Ukraine maintain its energy security in the wake of consistent, reckless attacks by Russia on Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Throughout all this, we need to keep in mind the size of the human cost of the Russian aggression for the past 3 years. Ukrainians who've lost their lives fighting courageously for their land, children taken from their families and homes and communities, which is a disgusting war crime, and violence subjected to prisoners of war taken by Russia.
Come on,
Implementing
Justin.
the Montreal Pledge to address the human costs of the war, a declaration made at the conference we co-hosted there last autumn with Norway and Ukraine, is more urgent than ever. We will continue to work with Ukrainian forces through Operation Unifier, which has already trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. And once a just peace is secured, Canada stands at the ready to work with our partners around the world to provide Ukraine the security it needs for the peace to last, allowing it to recover, rebuild, and prosper. Regardless of the great distance separating our 2 countries, Canada knows this is a war that we cannot afford to ignore. I know the stakes. Canadians know the stakes. All of you around this table know the stakes. And most of all, Ukrainians know the stakes. This is a war of aggression on Ukraine's people, culture, identity, and very existence. But it's also a war on our way of life. It's a war on democracy, on the rule of law, on self-determination, a war on justice, and a war on truth. At this critical moment, I think of the words of the great Ukrainian poet, Taras Shevchenko, whose works have been echoed by millions of Ukrainians as a source of inspiration. You must fight on, you will triumph. God is helping, leading. At your back are justice, glory, and sacred freedom. That excerpt was proudly recited in Independence Square by Serhiy Nihoyan, the first martyr of the Revolution of Dignity, shortly before he was killed. And 11 years later, it continues to ring true. Ukrainians will triumph because Ukrainians are fighting for what is right. But they cannot and should not do it alone. It's up to all of us in this room and around the world to meet this moment as well. And we can't wait. The moment to stop this war of aggression, the moment to defend democracy, the moment to stand for our shared values is now. So let us seize it. Merci beaucoup, mes amis. Slava Ukraini.
And of course, he had to put this on Twitter, saying, in Kyiv this afternoon, I laid out Canada's pledge to help Ukraine secure lasting peace and defend its sovereignty. So 25 more LAV-3s, 2 Canadian-made armored combat vehicles, 4 F-16 flight simulators, the first installment of Canada's loan, which is the $5 billion he talked about, new energy security support in wake of consistent reckless attacks by Russia on Ukraine energy infrastructure, millions of additional rounds of ammunition, protective equipment, and first aid kits. And what's odd to me is, isn't this war starting to wrap up? Zelenskyy himself said that he's willing to start with peace talks and start on negotiations. So I'm a little confused by this. Like, why now?
Would you meet President Putin to talk about peace?
Якщо би у мене була було розуміння, що Америка і Європа нас не кинуть, і вони нас будуть підтримувати і дадуть нам гарантії безпеки, то я був би готовий до будь-якого формату переговорів.
During months, we don't have too much time because we have a lot of wounded and dead people on the battlefield and through civilians. That's why we don't want to have this war during years. So that's why we want to prepare this joint plan, put it on the table to the second peace summit.